My friends, good afternoon to our great green and white nation. Today is a day of war. The eyes of the eagle are locked on every movement, every tick of the clock. Out there in Green Bay, the cold might cut through the air, but nothing can freeze the heart of this fan base. Today is about intensity, intelligence, and soul. We need to see an offense that commands respect, creative, fast, and lethal. A defense that's disciplined and aggressive, setting the tone and showing who owns the field. This is a game for those with ice in their veins and fire in their hearts. The time for talk is over. Now it's time to act. Every snap is a battle. Every yard earned is one step closer to greatness. Nothing can be left for tomorrow. It's today. It's now. It's time to prove who we are. So before we dive in, hit that like button, drop a comment saying "Go Eagles, I believe," and join me, because when the eagle takes flight, nothing can stop it. Tonight, under the freezing lights of Lambeau Field, the Philadelphia Eagles face one of their biggest tests of the season, not just against the Green Bay Packers, but against themselves. This is more than a matchup for playoff positioning. It's a defining moment for a defense that looks rebuilt, revitalized, and ready to prove it can dominate when the lights shine brightest. After the trade deadline, Philadelphia's front office went all in again, adding Jalen Phillips, Jaire Alexander, and Michael Carter to a defense that already ranked among the NFC's best. On paper, it feels like everything is coming together. Nolan Smith returns from injury, Brandon Graham is making his comeback after retirement, and the rotation suddenly looks deep enough to keep legs fresh through the second half of the season. Yet one question refuses to go away. Who will truly lock down that third cornerback spot as the playoff race tightens? Vic Fangio has options, maybe too many of them. Between Alexander, Carter, Cooper Dean, Kelee Ringo, Adoree Jackson, and Jacorian Bennett, there's experience, youth, and versatility, but not yet stability. You can feel that tension brewing inside the NovaCare complex. Fangio's defense has been solid, but with Super Bowl expectations, solid isn't enough. They need someone who can hold the line opposite Quinn Mitchell and give this team the kind of secondary consistency that separates good from elite. Initially, the plan was simple: give Jaire Alexander a shot on the outside. His pedigree, athleticism, and all-pro history made him the obvious candidate to elevate the cornerback group. But then came the twist, a knee/coach's decision deactivation that raised eyebrows across Philadelphia. Just days earlier, Alexander had told reporters he was fully healthy. Then suddenly, Fangio made the call to sit him down. Was it caution or a signal of something deeper? Some around the league whispered that this felt eerily familiar, shades of last year's Devin White situation, where the coach's decision label masked bigger issues beneath the surface. The official word was that Alexander needed another week to learn Fangio's complex defensive scheme. And make no mistake, Fangio's playbook isn't easy. It's heavy on reading routes, disguising coverages, and reacting with anticipation rather than pure athleticism. But still, fans can't help wondering if this was about more than just scheme. Did Philadelphia realize too late why Baltimore kept Alexander inactive for much of last season? Or is this just the careful, methodical patience of a defensive mind who wants his new players fully integrated before trusting them under Monday Night Football pressure? In the meantime, another name has quietly begun to rise: Jacorian Bennett. The young corner, acquired late in the offseason, has barely scratched the surface of his potential in midnight green. He struggled early in the year, especially against the Rams when Matthew Stafford picked on him relentlessly. But context matters. Bennett joined the Eagles just before the season started, thrown into Fangio's defense with limited prep time. And for a cornerback learning this system, a zone-heavy, vision-based scheme that demands reading and reacting rather than chasing, that's a tall order. Still, Fangio sees something there. He's mentioned Bennett multiple times recently, hinting that he wants to see what we've got in him. And tonight, with Alexander sidelined and Carter better suited to the slot, Bennett could be that next man up. The matchup helps. Green Bay's receiver room is thin, with injuries to key weapons leaving Jordan Love short-handed. Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs are solid but not terrifying. If ever there were a night to give Bennett his moment, this is it. And really, it's a low-risk, high-reward experiment. Kelee Ringo has shown flashes, but we already know his profile: big, physical, but inconsistent in coverage and late to react. Adoree Jackson is a steady veteran but lacks the burst that once made him dangerous. Bennett, though, he's still a mystery. With him, there's hope. The idea that maybe, just maybe, he could stabilize the cornerback rotation and bring some of the man coverage confidence he flashed last season in Las Vegas. His advanced metrics from 2024 suggested a player with real potential: strong separation numbers, above-average press technique, and the instincts to develop into something more. If he can translate that to Fangio's defense, he might just be the missing piece. Because the truth is, Philadelphia's secondary doesn't need a superstar. They already have Quinn Mitchell ascending and Cooper Dean providing steady play inside. What they need is someone who doesn't become a liability, someone who can survive when quarterbacks inevitably target him, testing the defense's depth. Bennett's story could be that spark, the unexpected rise of a quiet newcomer stepping into the storm at Lambeau. And what better stage than this? Cold weather, national spotlight, a revenge-minded Packers team desperate to even the score after last year's playoff defeat. This is the kind of game where roles are defined and careers can turn. Fangio has the chess pieces. Now it's about the move he makes. Does he roll the dice on youth, or play it safe with experience, hoping the veterans hold just long enough to let the pass rush take over? The Eagles' defensive line, now deeper than ever with Phillips, Carter, Graham, and Nolan Smith, should help whichever corner gets the nod. The front seven has been built for games like this, fast, physical, and relentless in collapsing the pocket. But if that secondary can't hold, all the pass rush in the world won't save them. Fangio knows that better than anyone. That's why tonight's choice at cornerback isn't just about one position, it's about identity. Is this defense ready to trust the next generation, or will it cling to the familiar names, hoping experience outweighs upside? Because sooner or later, this team is going to need someone unexpected to step up. Maybe that's Ja'Cory Bennett. Maybe it's still Jaire Alexander once he's fully integrated. Or maybe Michael Carter becomes the glue guy who balances everything from the slot. But the time for musical chairs is running out. The playoff race doesn't wait, and neither does Lambeau Field. So here we are, hours from kickoff. A defense that looks ready on paper, a locker room full of confidence, and a coach who has to make one critical decision that could define the second half of this season. Eagles fans, what do you think? Is it time to give Ja'Cory Bennett his shot under the Lambeau lights? If Vic Fangio decides to pull that trigger and start Ja'Cory Bennett tonight, it's not just about plugging a hole, it's about sending a message. It would signal that this coaching staff isn't afraid to gamble on youth when the moment calls for it, that development and upside can matter more than comfort and familiarity. And honestly, that's been the DNA of every great Eagles defense in the modern era, trusting the next man up, giving a young player the chance to prove he belongs when the pressure is at its highest. Because make no mistake, pressure defines Philadelphia. Every fan watching this game tonight feels it. Every player in that locker room feels it. The NFC race is too tight for errors, and the margin between home field advantage and a brutal January road trip is razor thin. If Bennett takes the field and delivers, even just a solid, steady performance, it could reshape the outlook of the entire defense. Suddenly, Fangio has a rotation that feels secure. Suddenly, opponents can't isolate weak links the way they've tried to in recent weeks. It's the ripple effect. Confidence in the secondary allows the front seven to play freer, blitz more aggressively, and disguise coverage without worrying about being exposed deep. And when Fangio's system runs at full speed, it's suffocating. That's when turnovers start piling up, and the defense begins to dictate tempo rather than react to it. With Brandon Graham back in uniform, a storyline that tugs at every heart in Philadelphia, the emotional spark is already there. Imagine coupling that veteran energy with the hunger of a young corner fighting to prove himself. That's how championship defenses are built. But let's also acknowledge the risk. Bennett is untested under these conditions. Lambeau in November isn't just another stadium, it's a proving ground. The cold hits different, the crowd feels closer, and mistakes linger longer. One blown coverage could tilt the game, and the Packers, even short-handed, know how to exploit inexperience. Jordan Love has been inconsistent, yes, but he's shown flashes of brilliance when he gets rhythm. And if Bennett's timing is even a half-second late in Fangio's zone-heavy structure, Love will find the soft spot and make him pay. So the challenge tonight isn't just physical, it's mental. Reading route combinations, trusting the eyes, staying patient when Green Bay uses play action to pull defenders out of position. Bennett can't afford to chase. Fangio will test his discipline early, maybe mix in disguised shells, drop him into deep thirds, and see how he reacts when the Packers flood his zone. It's a chess match within the game, and whether it ends in triumph or lesson, Bennett's response will tell us everything about how far this defense can go. Meanwhile, the other side of the ball carries its own storylines. Jalen Hurts, the calm at the eye of the storm, steps into Lambeau not just as the Eagles' leader but as a man redefining how to win. His rushing numbers may be down, but that's by design. The organization has made a long-term decision: protect the franchise. For years, Philadelphia has watched mobile quarterbacks burn bright and fade fast. Hurts doesn't need to be that cautionary tale. What we're seeing instead is evolution, a quarterback trading raw athleticism for calculated efficiency, sliding when he used to lower the shoulder, extending plays with vision instead of desperation. Still, there's something poetic about this matchup. The last time Hurts faced Green Bay under the primetime lights, he ran wild, a record-breaking performance that electrified the league and solidified his status as an MVP contender. 2 years later, the questions linger. Has he lost a step, or is he simply saving his best for when it matters most? The film says he's smarter, sharper, more precise. But fans can't help wondering, will the cold air and playoff-like stakes awaken that old dual-threat magic? That decision may come down to feel. If the Packers' pass rush starts heating up, if the pocket collapses, Hurts might have to go back to instincts. And that's where the danger lies for Green Bay. Even if his design runs have decreased, the threat alone freezes linebackers, slows edge rushers, and creates the chaos that Nick Sirianni's offense thrives on. And if that first drive opens with a tush-push, as many fans have joked about all week, it would be the perfect statement, a reminder to the Packers and the entire league that this is still Philadelphia's game to control. But none of that will matter if the defense doesn't hold its ground. Fangio's unit has been solid against the run, improving week after week as Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis anchor the interior. Adding Phillips off the edge brings speed, and with Nolan Smith healthy again, this front can attack in waves. They'll need that rotation tonight to contain Josh Jacobs and Green Bay's play-action rhythm, because if the Packers can't run, everything else falls apart. So much of tonight feels like a turning point, not just in the standings, but in identity. We'll find out if Fangio trusts his young corner, if Hurts can command the cold, if this defense can transition from good to dominant. It's the kind of game that tests chemistry, patience, and poise. And for a franchise that prides itself on grit and resilience, there's no better stage to prove it. When the final whistle blows, we'll know more than just the score. We'll know if the Eagles' mid-season rebuild on defense was genius or gamble, if Hurts' evolution is enough to carry them deep into January, and if that cornerback roulette has finally landed on a winner. Because every championship run has that one night when everything starts to click, or starts